Well, for the latest on the bus strike from the bus operators side, we are joined by spokesperson for the South African Road Passenger Bargaining Council, Mr. John Dammer. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. The latest essentially is that employers have given the unions until Wednesday to accept that 8% offer. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Good morning. No ultimatum was given to the union. Talks proved to be inconclusive on Thursday, and from the employer side, we have suggested to the mediators that it would be prudent for both parties to meet as soon as possible after the long weekend to explore further ways in which this impasse can be broken.
Can you give us any confirmation as to the deadline being Wednesday to accept the offer?
As I indicated just now, no deadline and no ultimatum has been given. We have merely indicated that there is an urgency for both parties to meet at the earliest convenience after the long weekend to explore further possible ways of resolving the strike. But, we have not given anybody an ultimatum. I think that would not be in the interest of good faith bargaining, since we appreciate the efforts of the CCMA and obviously would look forward to the goodwill of our social partners in labour to resolve this dispute.
Well, of course, SABC has disputed this, and we do know that negotiations between the unions and employers are deadlocked again last week. SABC spokesperson also mentioning some of the other issues apart from wages. On your end, what are some of the other issues and terms?
Well, there were essentially four issues that could, in addition to the across-the-board increase, not be resolved, and those issues are extending the night shift from 6 in the evening until 6 in the morning, whereas currently it is from 8 in the evening until 3 in the morning. Then there's also a demand on the side of labour for dual drivers that are not driving but in the bus to be remunerated. There is also the issue of insourcing, where there is now a demand that all categories that are listed in the annexure of the bargaining council agreement be paid by the company. And the fourth issue was a increased allowance to drivers of bi-articulated vehicles. We have suggested that these four issues, because of the complexity and technicalities that are associated with it, be referred to a standing committee of the council under the facilitation of the CCMA to, within 30 days after the agreement is signed, to explore possibilities to resolve these.
Now, of course, you've mentioned that it seems that SABC is quite strong on their stance in wanting these issues to be resolved, as well as that percentage. If the negotiations, start on Wednesday and still no resolution is then reached by the end of Wednesday, what is the way forward?
Well, firstly, I'd just like to correct you. SABC is not the only union that is involved in these negotiations. There are four other union groupings and two employer organizations that have been negotiating these conditions. We would like to call upon a more sober attitude on the part of our social partners in labour to recognise the operational difficulties that bus companies have to operate under. In your previous clip, the driver of one of the companies called upon an increase in the subsidy that is allocated to bus companies. Now, over the last 10 years, subsidy allocations to public transport on the road has only been increased by 5%. Over the same period, if one looks at the CPI, that also has only been increased by in the region of 5%. And if one juxtaposes the wage increases that employees that are covered by the South African Road Passenger Bargaining Council agreement have received salary increases in the region of 9%. So there's a difference, a significant difference between the sort of revenue sources that one as a bus owner can anticipate in the form of subsidies and the costs that are associated with running the operation. In this business, micromanagement of costs is a key indicator and a key performance area within the company. Because of the constrained revenue supplies, our kilometers are capped. We cannot utilize our assets to an optimal, on an optimal fashion because of the morning and the afternoon peak, and during the day they stand still. And also the spatial development patterns, which makes average trip lengths very long and characterized by low population densities. So, if wages, which constitutes about between 40 and 50% of the operational costs of a bus company, and if you add fuel to that, which is about in the region of 30%, these two, fuel, the bus company has no control over. However, the whole area of wages, and we cannot be allowed to continue increasing at a level that is far in excess of both inflation rate and also the subsidy allocation from the national fiscus.
Definitely. Would you make a reference to SABC, as that is one of the unions that we did speak to this morning, as I brought it up in the conversation? But thank you very much for joining us this morning. John Dammit from the South African Road Passenger Bargaining Council, the spokesperson there, giving us a bit of a prelude into the impasse that is currently taking place between employers as well as various bus unions upon the nationwide bus strike that has now entered its 13th day. That is a wrap up here on SABC Newsroom. Do stay tuned. We leave you with your weather forecast.